this is where the real work starts. Okay, so everything we've done up until now is just set up. Let's quickly go ahead and do the attendance. Okay, so at the far left side, you will see something called rules. Over here, you will select what days in the week are weekends. Okay, so let's say, for example, you work on a Saturday, and obviously you will not select a Saturday. Okay, so you only have 1 day holiday or 1 day weekend. All right, so Sunday is your weekend, the rest of the days you come in for work. Then at the bottom here, you will be able to select, is this a weekday work time level? Okay, so over here you will set up your overtime, right? So that is what the OT stands for. For Monday, after you've worked 9 hours, you'll be switched over to a level time 1. Okay, and then obviously after 24 hours, you will be switched over to level 3. Okay, so this is like a pay scale. Let's say, for example, I had this set up over here. I'm going to make this 9 hours on Saturday. Well, let's make this 4 hours here just to explain what it will look like, right? So you'll select, let's say, for example, 4. Okay, so on Saturday, if you've worked more than 4 hours, you will be moved over to overtime 2. Okay. And then if you've worked more than 6 hours on that day, for example, so 2 hours between that, then you'll be moved over to overtime level 2, right? So if you've worked more than 4 hours, you'll be on level 1. If you've worked more than 6 hours now on Saturday, you'll be moved over to level 2. And then level 3, for example, if you've worked more than 8 hours on Saturday. So over here, it will now display like this on your report. So let's say, for example, someone works more than 4 hours on a Saturday, they will get some overtime 1. Then if they work more than 6, overtime 2, and then obviously overtime 3 if someone worked more than 8 hours on a Saturday. Obviously, you will need to know what each overtime level means. Okay, so let's say, for example, overtime level 2, you pay more for them. It's like a level up in your pay scale. All right, so let's say, for example, 1.5 or something salary rate, and then number 3, for example, is maybe 3 times your salary, stuff like that. Okay, so you can set it up. Otherwise, I think in South Africa, we only really use from 1 standard overtime. So you'll start at 9 and then you'll work up until 24 hours. Okay, so this is just one way of doing it. Let's quickly go to the holiday. You can set up holidays if you'd like. Okay, so you'll click on add here. You'll see that we already have a few different holidays. We have one New Year's, Christmas, Boxing Day, test, etc., etc. Okay, so if you click on add, you'll be able to name your holiday something. Okay, so I'm just going to click on cancel here. You can name your holiday something. You can select if you want them to work on this holiday. If they work on this test, then you'll just select this. And then obviously you'll select the overtime. So I did not select any overtime. So as soon as they come in to work on this day, they will start receiving overtime level 3. Okay, so it will go from 1, 2, and 3. Because all of them are 0, then obviously you will land on number 3. Okay, so is this holiday only once, or does it cycle by a fixed date? If you select the fixed date here, then it will mean every 5th of October, it will be a holiday for 2 days. If you select the cycle by a fixed day, then over here you can select, okay, every first Sunday, for example, it will start to create this. Okay, so it will have your test holiday, right? And then obviously you can select here how many times or how many days should this holiday be. Okay, so how long should this last for? Right, on the advanced, not really something that you need to worry about. Work time stats, you don't need to worry about. Timetable, there we go. This one is the one that you need to work on. All right, so when you want to set up a timetable, you have an option of two timetables that you can set up. You can either have a flexible one. So I've created this one, I've called it flex. Let's actually call it flexible. Let's save it now. All right, so flexible, and then obviously the default or the regular. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. Okay, so you can either work on a flexible one or a regular. So how do you add a flexible or a regular? You have an option here of either selecting either two. So the difference between the two, I'll just flick through this as well. The difference between the two is your flexible does not have any breaks allocated to it. So your regular has a break, but your flexible does not have any breaks allocated to it. Okay, then obviously on the general as well, flexible, you cannot have a few different options here, for example. So what do you use a flexible timetable for? Okay, so the flexible timetable is usually used for contract workers, someone that you don't really care of how long or when they come in and out, they should just work a certain amount of minutes within that day. Right, so if you select 480 minutes here, then this, unfortunately, this is minutes. You can't have this in hours. Okay, so you'll need to know how long 480 minutes is. I think it's 5 hours or so, 5 or 4 hours. You'll select how long they should work for that day. So if they, let's say, for example, they came in at 8 and they left at 10, they came back and they left again, for example, then it will display how long they have worked. Okay, so very important, if you have selected this used first check-in and last checkout only, it means that, let's say, for example, they left for the whole day, but then they came back and clocked in very, very late, then it will just calculate from the first time they clocked in to the last time. So it would say that they worked far more than, for example, 418 minutes. But if you do not select this, then they have to make sure that they come in and out. Make sure it's a clock in and a clock out, and then you'll be able to select or see how long they've actually worked. Right, so just make sure that you do not select this for this flexible here. On the regular timetable, we have a few different options. You can select when your employees should clock in or check in every day, right? So should they check in at 8? So they should be working from 8 and they should work until 5. Okay, you can give it a color if you'd like. You can just select there, choose a color. Please don't leave it on white because that will just create some confusion, as well as the flexible. All right, and then over here, the punch from and the punch to is very, very important. Okay. So this means that they should start working from 8 to 5, but they can start punching or clock in from when can they start clocking in and out. All right, so if you select 5 o'clock, then they can start clocking in at 5. Let me put it on 3 o'clock just to be safe. Right, so if you select the punch from at 3 o'clock, 3 a.m., then it means that before 3 a.m., no one can clock in. Okay, so if someone clocks in before 3 a.m., then unfortunately you will not receive that clock in. Okay, so you won't see that clock in. So you need to make sure that they can start punching in from a very early time within the day to make sure that if they clock in before their check-in time, which is 8 o'clock, then you'll receive or you'll see that clock in. Okay, so I'm just putting this at 3 o'clock. So let's say, for example, if someone clocked in at 5 a.m., then I will still see that clock in. Okay, but if they clocked in at 2 o'clock, I will not be able to see that clock in. All right. Then the clock out or the punch to time, I've just set this just before midnight. This will just allow me that if someone works very late or they want to work overtime, for example, they can then clock out just before midnight, and I will see that clock out as well. All right, so the same concept with the punch from, it's just the vice versa for the punch to. All right, so over here we have an option to allow late. You will then be able to select or say how long do you want to allow late in. So let's say, for example, someone is late in the morning. How long do you want them to be not shown as absent or late or whatever? So if you select 15 minutes over here, they can be late with 15 minutes every morning. Okay, and they won't be shown as late. If you select early out by 5 minutes, it means that they can start leaving 5 to 5. If you move this to 10, it will be 10 to 5. All right, so they can start clocking out 10 to 5. They will still be shown as they're leaving on time. Right, late in exceed. So the reason I did not select this, all right, is I do not want them to be shown as absence. Okay, so you can also have, let's say, for example, if someone did not, if they did not check in the day, then obviously they will be counted as absent, but I'm not going to select this because let's say, for example, they did not check in, but they check out for that day. The system will just mark them as absent, but let's not choose that. So let's say these two options here, if they are later than 20 minutes, for example, they should be marked as absent, yes or no. If they're 6 minutes, for example, let's make this 16 minutes or 15 minutes. Then they will be marked as absent. Okay, so if you have them selected, it will count, but even if you have some values in there and you do not select this, then they won't count. All right. So yeah, I'm not going to select them because that is just a little bit harsh for me. Okay, you can also enable the overtime for this timetable. Where do you get the overtime from? Remember in rule when we set up our overtime. Okay, so you can set up if this timetable should listen to your rules. Okay, so if you select that, then this timetable will receive overtime if they work more than 9 hours, for example. Early in exceeds. Okay, so let's say, for example, someone came at 3 a.m. How do you want that to display on your reports? Do you just want them to show that they came in early, but they only worked for 9 hours that day? Then you will not select this. But let's say you select it and you put in here 30 minutes. That means they have, when they clock in, they should be 30 minutes or 8 at least to have those minutes allocated to their working time. So if they clock in at 3 a.m., I mean, they will have a few hours added to their working time. That will then allocate it to the overtime once they reach 9 hours. All right, so late out also, if you select this and you put in here 25 minutes, it means that if someone works overtime for that day, that they will have to work more than 25 minutes before they can actually start receiving overtime. Okay, so let's say, for example, they came in at 8 and they left at 20 past 5, then unfortunately you will not receive any overtime for that because you need to work at least more than 25 minutes. All right, then obviously also these same functions over here. If you use the first check-in and last checkout only, it will mean that it will take the first check, doesn't matter if it is a checkout. So let's say, for example, your device can only have one check, or you don't want your employees to select different states, then you'll select then you select this option over here. This is just easier. Okay, so what this does is it will take your first clock, doesn't matter if it's an in or an out, and then it will take your last one and it will allocate the time that between those times, right? So it will work out the time that you worked or something. So it will take the times between that times and it will tell you, listen, you worked 9 hours. Okay. This has one fault in it. So let's, for example, you left for break, okay, and you came back very, very, very late, for example, and then you clock out. Then it will tell you worked for 9 hours. All right, so very important. If you have this unselected, then you need to make sure that your clocks are correct. Okay, so in the morning, there should be check-ins. In the afternoons, there should be a check-out. So this will just make it more accurate. But if you have just one device, I will just recommend using this. Okay. On the regular, you are able to select different breaks to allocate to a, let's say, for example, a timetable. How do you do that? First, you need to set up some breaks. So if I put in here, I'm going to say break here. Did I actually not type that? There we go, break. All right, and I want this break to be an auto deduct. So it should automatically deduct from their working times. Let's select here. I'm going to make this 2 o'clock. And then it should be 1 hour break time. All right, so I want this to be auto deduct. Okay, so now I have an auto deduct here. And then this tea time, for example, this is not auto-deduct, this is based on punch. Okay, so very important. They need to select the break in and break out on your device. Otherwise, they will not receive this break. Okay. So if you have this selected, you are able to say, listen, they can take their tea time anywhere between 10 and 11, even though they only have 30 minutes. That means that they have 30 minutes anywhere between 10 and 11. And then also you are able to calculate the employee's unbreak time as working hours. If you have this selected, then let's say, for example, they did not take their lunch or their tea time, then it will allocate this 30 minutes to their working time. Okay. You're also able to say you don't want this, right? So then you'll just unselect that. Okay. So if they don't take their tea time, then unfortunately they've lost those 30 minutes there. If their break exceeds a certain amount of minutes, do you want them to show as late in or absent or early out? You can have that selected, whatever you'd like. Okay, so this is just the 3 breaks over here. If you want to select a break and want it to apply to a certain timetable, then you'll just select the breaks that you want to display or to count towards this timetable, for example. Okay, so once you've set up your timetables, then we can actually go to shift here. And on the shift, we can actually call this one something crazy. So I'm just going to delete this. Yes, I want to delete it. All right, so you'll see here we have 3 different shifts. We have a flexible one, we have a default shift. Okay, you can also mix the shifts. One shift here and then mix the different timetables. You can pull this timetable to anywhere. It'll display on the correct times. So you can have it a mix, but you can't have it on the same day. So you can't have a green and a red on the same day. It will replace, unfortunately, it will replace it. Okay, so just note that is not possible. All right, so shifts that I have already created here. I have one flexible as one default as well. Okay, very important. It needs a name. Then also the start date is very, very, very important. All right, so please make sure that your start date for your shifts should be in the past. Okay, so this one, for example, started in 2014. This is a great example. Please make sure that you put your starting date of your shift far in the past. Otherwise, if you have it selected for today, then it will mean that if someone clocked in yesterday and your shift only started today, then you won't see the clocks from yesterday. Okay, so please make sure that you set this in the past, even before you received your clocks, for example. So 2014 is a great day that you can actually select it. Okay, you'll see here, you're also able to select your cycle type. Okay, so let's say, for example, every 2 weeks, you want this to, I'm going to click on add here, and I'm going to make this cycle for 2 weeks. Okay, so we'll start today. Let's actually move it to the Monday over here, for example. And the shift started on Monday. I'm going to move this in here. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, so this is week 1. Okay, and then for week 2, I'm just going to move this down. You'll see here, it will start on Monday again. There we go, there we go. Thursday and then Friday. Okay. So now you see that I have 2 weeks. So I'm just going to put it 2 just so I'll know what that is. Okay, so this will just mean once we are done with week 1, it will then go on to week 2. And then once you are done with week 2, it will start again on week 1. So let's say, for example, you worked until you're done with week 2, for example, then you'll just start at 1 again. All right, so it will cycle every 2 weeks. You have an option here between weeks or days. If you want like the 3rd day to be day 1 again, then you can just select here. Then it will start with Monday. is your one timetable, Tuesday is your other one, for example, then Wednesday is day one again, then Thursday is day two, Friday is day one, etc., etc. I'm just going to select a week here and then we'll just see here. Yes. Okay. So just make sure that you have this start date in the past, the schedule. Very important. Do not touch this smart management or the smart shift management. Please stay away. Okay. Then you'll see your shifts on the left-hand side. If I have this selected, it will display everyone that works on those shifts. Okay. So you'll see here, if you're allocated to a certain department, right? So you have two ways of adding this. I've already added this by department. That just means that they work either in internal marketing or sales or support. Right. So everyone working in support, okay, will then receive a different schedule. Okay. Everyone working in sales will then receive a schedule depending on what you've set here, and then also in internal marketing. Okay. So how do you do this? Right. So very important. The start date, again, please put this in the past. Very, very far in the past. I'm just going to put this for last year, the 1st of October. And I do not want to set a end date because I want this schedule to last forever. So I'm just going to select they start working on the shift number 2. Okay, so the 2-week cycle one here. And I want to apply this to a certain person. I don't want to apply this to a marketing, for example. I just want to apply this. I see here anyone is not on one. So I'm just going to say confirm here, and I'm going to say confirm. Then you will see I have anyone that works in marketing, right? And he starts on the shift on the 1st of October. Okay. You can always delete this. And let's do this for the whole department. Okay. So I'm just going to select marketing here. So everyone in marketing works on number 2 now. So you'll see here, anyone, he works in marketing, he's now on number 2, and he started working on the 1st of October. Okay, you'll be working on this shift until the end of time. This one over here is a option here. So I did not select this, or I did not unselect this. So this shift will only last from the 8th of October until the last day of December. Right, so number W here works on this shift for that amount of time. Right, so you can either have it selected either to an employee or for the whole department. So once you've done this, then you'll be able to select the schedule here as well. So I'll just show you anyone's schedule. So anyone works on this schedule now. It started on the 1st. The reason why the first few days is off is because that the shift started on the 11th. Okay. So that's why, even though he started working on the shift before the shift actually started, this will now be displayed like this. W here, for example, works on the 1A, works on this one. Pam Halpert also works on that one. And then Margaret works on this one, for example. Okay. So you'll see here, we have 2 things here called test. This is just the holiday that I've created. So I had one holiday that I called test, and this is that holiday displayed over here. You can always select, let's say, for example, anyone here. If it says off, it means that they don't work on those days. But let's say, if I leave it on the day off and I assign this, then let me just select this here. They will then be on off. If I select this day and I select clear, it will be back on that day. Let's put this on a normal work here, and then I can select all between my timetables. I have 2 timetables. So if I had more, then I can just select that one there, for example, and I want it over here. So let's say for this employee, this is just temporary, but Thursday, yesterday, you had to work on this timetable. Next week, Thursday, you'll work on a different timetable. And then for this one here again, and there we go. So this is just temporary. You can do this. I'm just going to clear this here, for example, and there we go. We are back. All right. So very, very important. You can do that as well. The exception assigned, same concept. Just you're able to set if this person was sick today or not. This was a sick leave or it was a vacation or anything like that. I'm just going to assign here for the total day. I'm just going to assign that person to here, and they are sick for the whole day. Okay, so that's just as easy as that. Otherwise, if you don't select this, you'll have to select how long they were actually gone. So over here, for example, they were sick for 2 hours. Okay, so you can have that as well. That's also an option here. I'm going to just clear this here as well. Then lastly, actions. Over here, you'll be able to see all of your transactions. If you don't transactions here, just make sure that you get all of the transactions from your device. Okay, so if you don't get it from the device, then obviously not receive any transactions here. I'm just going to select all of the transactions that I've created for Marnu was on the 6th and then the 7th. All right, so you'll see here I've check in, check out, back, out. All right, so I have a few checks for Marnu. If you don't see any reports or any transactions, it means that you did not get the transactions from your device. Okay, so very important. Once you've done everything correctly, you've set up everything, you'll be able to set or calculate for your employees. Okay, so let's say, for example, you want to pull a report from the 1st of October until today. I'm going to calculate this, then it will get all of the dates from the 1st to today. It will tell you how many times that this person actually came in for work. He came in the 6th, the 7th here. Let's add some records here so you can do this manually. So I'm just going to say modify record. This is a manual punch. I have Marnu selected over here, the 14th. What is the time that they came into work? I'm going to say 8 o'clock again. This was a check-in, and I'm going to say save. I'm going to say add here, and I'm going to say check out, and this is 17, and I'm going to say save. So now I have 2 checks, manual checks, check in, check out on the same day, 8 to 5, and I'm just going to say save again just to make sure, and I'm going to recalculate, and there we go. We have some times that I've actually came into work yesterday. All right, so there we go. We have a few different hours that I've already worked. So my required working hours was 450 minutes, but I worked 480 minutes. Okay, so I have a few minutes overtime, 30 minutes overtime. And now once you've done the calculate, so the reason why you calculate is, let's say, for example, you change some information on your timetable or shift, and you calculate and you make sure that you get all of that information, and your system will then show your information correctly. If you don't calculate, it might not show correctly. So very important. Once you've done this, then you can go to reports. I just want to see the monthly schedule. So the monthly schedule here is great if you want to see when they should actually work. So I'm just going to say search here, and then you'll see here Marnu needs to work the 1st of the Friday, and then he had 2 days off, 1 day, 2 days holiday, 2 days work off, weekend off, etc., etc. So you can see here. So the reason why this is off and this one is weekend off is because, remember, we work on Saturdays. I never put a weekend on the Saturday. Okay, but the shift only goes from Monday to Friday, so that's why this is a little bit different. You can always I don't think you can print this out. Let's just select this here. You'll see that this is just for one person. Okay, so it doesn't look like you can actually export this, but you can just view this on the software, etc., etc. So you can either have for multiple users underneath each other, or if you just wanted to display one person's schedule, it'll display one person's schedule as is. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Let's quickly go to reports. So once